Welcome back to Marvelous Videos. I'm Rylan, and this is the 10 Scariest Animal Horror Movies. Animals, one of the most beloved creations to exist on this planet. Beloved to all, hated by least. Who doesn't like to have animals as pets? Cats, dogs, birds, tigers, snakes, you name it. People have domesticated as many of these lovely phenomena of Mother Nature for their own pleasure. But what if one day you wake up in the middle of the night to see your adorable little puppy holding a satanic ritual with the rest of the dogs of the neighborhood? What if those snakes we mentioned were actually ancient serpent demons that came to rule the earth? Horror movies have depicted animals in all sorts of ways, and today we'll be exploring the most iconic ones that there is in the Hollywood industry. So join us, won't you? Before we get into today's analysis, however, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thanks. Now, let's begin. Anaconda, 1997. The opening of Anaconda starts with an interesting fact. Anacondas are one of a kind amid snakes. They excrete after consuming their prey in order to eat it again. The sheer terror that one gets while reading this one sentence is enough to state the impact of this movie. I really doubt if there are many out there that have not seen this film, but Anaconda is one not to be missed. Get it? Notorious 40-foot anacondas, merciless beasts known to vomit their meal in order to hunt it again, live in the Amazon jungle, at least for the sake of this movie and as gruesome foreshadowing. Terry Flores, played by Jennifer Lopez, reunites with expert Dr. Stephen Kale, Eric Stoltz, in the Ariao Jungle Hotel in Brazil to produce a documentary on the people of the Mist, an obscure Indian tribe. On a boat commanded by the tough explorer Mateo, they're accompanied by narrator Warren Westbridge, played by Jonathan Hyde, production managers Denise, Carrie Wooer, and Gary, Owen Wilson, as well as cameraman Danny Rich, played by Ice Cube. They stumble upon the wincing poacher Paul Ceron, played by Jon Voight, not long into their voyage down the river. Ceron quickly reveals, after leading the crew to a hospital after a toxic wasp strikes Kale, or foraging for fuel as they float past a destroyed boat, that the group are not priorities for him. His mission is to capture an anaconda that is undoubtedly the largest in the world alive. It's a risky mission, and the rookie filmmakers aren't exactly keen on assisting him, so they're ultimately imprisoned. Anaconda is another one of those horror movies that is immensely severe, frightening, and gruesome, and ends up living up to the expectations of the viewer. The dialogue is engrossing, filled with intellect and wit. It also makes the public invested on the visual effects, which are equally as unique for its time. The computer-generated sequences are a sight to see, and the slimy mechanical snakes instill terror and fear easily. Not surprisingly, this blockbuster film became a successful series, producing 3 sequels, which is remarkable given that the majority were direct-to-DVD or made-for-TV releases. Black Sheep, 2006. Black Sheep is a movie that relishes in blood and gore. To highlight the absurdity, take the world's least aggressive critters and experiment with genetic abnormalities to enhance livestock, and voila! Sheep with killer instincts. This New Zealand-funded film is directed by Jonathan King. Henry and Angus Oldfield are 2 New Zealand boys who grow up on a huge sheep farm. Henry, played by Nathan Meister, has a lot of potential as a sheep farmer, but when his enraged older brother terrorizes him by murdering a sheep and wearing its bloody fleece, Henry develops ovinophobia, or a fear of sheep. That terror, I believe, was created by them. I seriously doubt that there was enough people in the world that have a hatred for sheep to warrant a diagnosis, but this movie establishes the psychosis. Henry's delicate mind is further shattered when his father dies in a horrific accident, shortly after this bloody hazing. Angus has employed a mad scientist, played by Tandy Wright, who has invented a mutated strain of sheep, and they are discarding of some of the unborn sheep, now in jars of formaldehyde. Grant brazenly steals one of the vials and escapes into the woods, with a few of the mad scientist's henchmen close on his tail. Grant stumbles and breaks the jar, landing on the lamb fetus, which appears to be alive. This film was a lot of fun. The characters are extremely loosely drawn, and it resembles Shaun of the Dead in that manner. The film doesn't quite hit Shaun's hilarious heights, but it does have some genuine laugh-out-loud sequences. Some of the chuckles come from the over-the-top gore and the inconsistency of flesh-eating sheep, while others come from the circumstances. Black Sheep is precisely what it claims to be, a low-budget horror thriller with equal parts gore, comedy, and horror. The visual effects are excellent, mainly due to the fact that they had been created by Weta Workshop, the team that went on to work with Jackson on his blockbuster releases, and many other impressive titles, including Avatar. The plot is arguably the most comedic component in some respects, which is aided by the fact that the marketing was quite clear that it would be a killer sheep movie. When you add the fact that the story is quite unique, the upshot is that it's rapidly evident what will happen, and all you have to do now is wait. What happens to Angus in the conclusion must be seen, or unseen, to be comprehended. Lake Placid, 1999. What an animal does in the water is his own business, unless it harms man. Sheriff Keogh, one of the characters in Lake Placid, says as much. I have to say I completely disagree with him. Until scuba divers enter his territory, a 30-foot crocodile in this film stays in the water, calmly feeding on bears and calves. It is all their fault that the beast becomes enraged and begins to consume humans. A diver in Aroostook County, Maine, has the bottom portion of his body ripped off by a fanged lake monster, as should happen in any good killer animal movie. Officer Jake Wells, Bill Pullman, of the local fish and game department, believes that it was a bear. All Sheriff Hank Keogh, Brendan Gleeson, understands is that he's lost a close friend. New York paleontologist Kelly Scott, played by Bridget Fonda, travels to the remote backwater marshland of New England to work as an assistant. At the same time, Hector Sear, a wealthy, quirky mythology professor and crocodile connoisseur, arrives in a private chopper to assist in the search of what he believes is a gigantic crocodile. Deputy Sharon Gare, one of the few characters who seems real as a supporting character dealing with a harsh situation, also joins them. The body count grows as the squad explores the murky waters for indications of the thing. And when the 30-foot crocodile eventually reveals itself by hauling a furious bear into the lake, the group makes solid plans to take down the unfathomable monster. Everyone is curiously crafted to be a perfect pairing for a man-eating reptilian film, and everyone is quirky, smart, sardonic, and unique. Lake Placid makes no attempt to hide its funny nature, the absurdity of the central theme, or the characters' amusing responses to devastation. It's a mixture of terror and comedy. Stan Winston's animal concepts are always interesting in terms of visual effects, and Lake Placid's scaly enemy is no exception. The computer images are good, since they're employed selectively, and it's the massive animatronic beast that really stands out. The slimy, rubbery puppet, which looks like the combination between the shark from Jaws and the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, has some really fun moments, the best of which includes an undersea onslaught on Fonda, and an airborne assault on the helicopter. The finale is quite amazing too. However, the only downside is that this film moves a little too quickly, with a significantly short duration. The Grizzly. Jaws was introduced into the world back in 1975. It went on to become a box office hit, ushering in not simply a new generation of filmmaking, but also a new period of terror. Organic horror films were soon being produced left and right, as indie filmmakers tried to emulate Jaws' box office performance. One such endeavor was Grizzly. Disfigured campers have been discovered at a national park. The bear population is under suspicion. Forest Ranger Michael Kelly, played by Christopher George, sets out to stop the devouring slaughter, with the help of pilot Don Stober, portrayed by Andrew Pine, as well as biologist Dr. Arthur Scott, Richard Jackal. The assailant, however, turns out to be far bigger and deadlier than predicted. By introducing components that made the plot work, Spielberg is always able to make the most of the familiar story. Genuine characters, tension development, and maintenance, an awesome-looking monster, and so on. These features are easily found in Grizzly as well. The characters are entertaining to watch, and they deliver much more than what the script asks of them. In these forests, there isn't much in the way of suspense. While Grizzly does throw a twist on a cliché here and there, we can confidently predict every character's demise. The bear is by far the most frustrating aspect of Grizzly. It's also adorable at times, rather than threatening. When you see him standing on his hind legs and roaring, you want to pet him, instead of fleeing in horror. The bear's legacy is made exciting by the fact that he is supposed to be a million-years-old living fossil, raising thoughts of a terrifying-looking mythological beast. Grizzly, despite its familiar plot, is a lot of fun to watch, and is ideal for a leisurely Sunday afternoon. Viewers may find some amusement in the way used to kill the grizzly bear, and happily, it includes a fair amount of brutality. All of the aspects of the movie mesh together decently, and they are worth seeing at least once. It won't be able to take the position of Jaws by any means as your favorite natural horror film, but this still does deserve an honorable mention. Do as well.
Oh my God, you rabbit.
Cujo, 1983. How did a Hollywood film about a large, hairy, vicious dog and two people locked in a car become such a major measurement of current pop culture? Cujo is a particularly odd addition to the Stephen King series. While the title has stuck with people since the film's release back in 1983, it still seems like an unusual contender. A rabid dog traps a woman and her child in a car. Cujo, the adorable Saint Bernard, is seen chasing a bunny into a hole. Cujo is soon bit on the nose by a large brown bat. What will happen to anyone in his vicinity in the meanwhile is depressingly evident. However, it's engaging to see just how the picture can retain a sense of suspense. With a linear plot as this, a series of circumstances causes the parents to split up, and the mom and boy went to an auto repair shop in a remote location. Unknown to them, Cujo is the only entity alive in the area, and no one is expected for a long time. Mother and son are confined in their stalled vehicle for a long time, under the watchful eye of what is now turned into one utterly disturbing dog. Under all that dirt and cosmetics, it's possible to make out the shapes of a normal Saint Bernard, but the dog's image becomes quite terrifying. Miss Wallace's acting especially is stellar and quite effective. Danny Pintaro is quite excellent as the terrified child as well. Cujo incorporates multiple subplots that distributes the screen time despite a relatively brief 90-minute span, all of which do perfect justice to the horror elements of mistreated beasts' vengeance, or the notion of nature going wrong. The film closely follows the book, albeit the ending is slightly altered for commercial reasons, and the underlying themes of unconnected stories, life's uncertainty, and random answers not linked to conscious action are clearly translated to the big screen. Be warned, if you get too engrossed in Cujo, you could have trouble looking your own dog in the eyes. Pet Sematary, 1989. There is a meadow in the woodland outside of the little Maine community of Ludlow, which is the setting for Stephen King's Pet Sematary, where generations of children have buried their dogs, cats, and even fish. The name of the film comes from a plaque drawn by the youngsters above the entry to the Pet Sematary. It's chock full of imaginative deceptions, like an angry zombie male cat who stalks the household where he once lived as a living pet. He growls at everyone and stinks like a demon. The plot revolves around a beloved 3-year-old boy, after being revived, transforms into a pint-like monster with a Donald Duck-like voice. When it comes to horror classics from the 1980s, Pet Sematary is one that many people believe to be underappreciated. After all, by 1989, many moviegoers had grown tired of horror films due to an overabundance of repetitions and rip-offs of the same fundamental formulas. However, Pet Sematary is an outstanding film. The first half of the film does an excellent job of creating the tone and establishing the terrors that will soon follow. And when the terrors finally arrive, there are some truly terrifying horrors in the mix. When Elliot Goldenthal's wonderful pitch-perfect musical notes are added, the result is frequently something surreal. The film works primarily because it relies on the viewers to carry out most of the objectives. Dramatic music and visual effects describe and enhance what the narrative also explains. To be honest, given that the film has been around for over 30 years, you're probably more eager in seeing what else this fresh release has to offer. The plot is almost digestible in the book, which has 300 pages of motive. In the film, however, this is impossible, and you must wade through scene after scene of intensity, which is an enjoyable ride. Pet Sematary aspires to be more than just another zombie movie, and it ultimately comes across as just that, and provides a faithful adaptation of its novel. The Birds, 1963. Typically, critter attack horror films depict monsters that are hazardous in the first place. Sharks, snakes, velociraptors, or that have grown large and nasty as a result of radiation, contamination, genetic modification, witchcraft, mutations. You get the idea. This shows in killer ants, giant mutant killer bunnies, etc. Pseudo-scientific justifications are commonplace. Director Alfred Hitchcock and screenwriter Evan Hunter came up with a fabulously unique concept, a 1940s screwball comedy romance placed over an unfathomable horror story. Characters and setting are described in great depth, up until the halfway point. The Birds might easily be a rom-com drama. The transformation occurs when birds of all kinds, primarily crows and seagulls it appears, begin to attack the town's residents in groups. In the end, the birds defeat the humans, and Hitchcock's final shot, which exhibitors are likely to compress, depicts the birds in possession. The Birds is widely regarded as the final great Hitchcock film. It was shot in 1963, at the height of the director's fame. Could it also be considered the definitive Hitchcock film? The purest and most assured expression of the issues that had been fueling him. Its ambition, bravado, and master of the content is something to behold. Hitchcock's ability to combine screaming B-movie histrionics with cold film genre elegance is commendable. His camera work's formal accuracy, Evan Hunter's clever efficiency of language, and a sense of location so precise and confident they make you feel like you've been there. In this movie, the birds are literally free to fly. Apart from that updraft of sensory ambiance and existential dread, there is no motor pushing it, no music to anchor it, and nothing to keep it afloat. Hitchcock is said to have worried a lot about how to end the film. He finally scrapped the scripted ending scene in favor of a non-resolution, open ending, the perfect closing picture that keeps the planet in limbo and all of its secrets undisturbed. There are hints to ornithological, historical, and psychological theories. We're left with the birds in the end, observing as the people abandon the house to them. As the sun rises, a final anticipation is shattered. The words "the end" are missing from the screen. A must-watch movie if I've ever recommended one. Orca, 1977. Many a film producer hurried to profit in on Steven Spielberg's summer blockbuster, Jaws, with numerous rip-offs, and renowned Italian movie director Dino De Laurentiis wasn't going to miss his shot at this booming subgenre. So he turned to his producer friend, Luciano Vincenzoni, and asked him to find a fish trickier and much more fearsome than the great white. The film Orca, about a vengeful killer whale, was founded as the result of his quest. An enraged killer whale goes berserk in the fisherman's Newfoundland port after witnessing Captain Nolan's murder of his mate and kids. Nolan, Rachel, and Umalak sail after the giant beast, who will confront them on its own grounds, under the influence of the villagers. The film appears to be both nice and quite wayward at times. Some of the ocean and coastal town videography is good, but it's mixed in with stock video and whale film from California's Marine Land of the Pacific and Marine World Africa. It appears to be a bleak and desolate environment. It's clear right away that Orca's editing is probably not on par with Jaws, at best. The introduction and specifics of the killer whales and their poachers are done quite well, and the narration is entirely superfluous and well-fitting. The characters' motivations are eye-opening and quite engrossing, and there are opportunities for actual relationships throughout the movie. The orca fulfills the creator's desire for an enemy who is sharper than a great white. The whale is excessively intelligent. It can pop gas lines, start fires, and knows real estate around the small town by knowing what ships to sink and houses to tear down to get the town to eject Nolan. Orca isn't a fantastic picture by any standards, but it is still a classic of this subgenre that deserves at least one watch. Surprisingly, the climax depicts a battle on an iceberg with the monster, which is a sight to behold. One of the most memorable aspects of Orca is its background score, which fills in the pauses in the action with videos of leaping and breaching whales. All in all, don't have high expectations, but just know that you will definitely enjoy this flick and relish its beauty and creativity as is seen. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to send a like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. For Marvelous Videos, I'm Rylan. Have a good one, be safe, and thanks for watching.